76 years ago, the date of December 7th would go down in world history. We're exploring how and why in just a couple minutes on CNN 10. First story from the White House, a major announcement yesterday by U.S. President Donald Trump.
I have determined that it is time to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
We explained why this decision is so significant in our Tuesday, December 5th show. You can find that in our archives at CNN10.com. The president said the world is no closer to a peace agreement between Israelis and Palestinians than it has been for more than 2 decades, as previous U.S. leaders delayed recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. President Trump also said America remained committed to helping Palestinians and Israelis achieve lasting peace. The international reaction? Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the U.S. decision an important step toward peace, saying there's no peace that doesn't include Jerusalem as Israel's capital. But Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas said Jerusalem is the eternal capital of the state of Palestine, and that America no longer had the right to broker peace in the region. As part of the recognition, President Trump ordered his administration to start the process of moving the U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv, Israel, to Jerusalem. That could take years, but several nations from the Middle East to North Africa to Europe are against it. Many believe the declaration and embassy move could make the Middle East less stable. They say it's a threat to peace. Some Palestinian groups have called for 3 days of rage, which could lead to demonstrations in the area. And U.S. officials have made security warnings for places in Jerusalem. President Trump said the final borders of the city would ultimately be up to Israelis and Palestinians. That's something that seemed to be echoed by the Czech Republic. It joined the U.S. yesterday in recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's current capital, but said it considers the city the future capital for both Israel and a future state of Palestine. 10-second trivia. U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt described December 7, 1941 as a date which will live in what? Iniquity, atrocity, ignominy, or infamy? Infamy was the word he used after the Japanese military launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii.
Our great Pacific outpost in the Hawaiian Islands is ruthlessly bombed.
At the time, it was the deadliest attack ever carried out on U.S. soil. More than 2,300 Americans were killed, hundreds of U.S. airplanes were destroyed, 8 battleships were either damaged or destroyed, and on December 8th, the day of President Roosevelt's famous speech, the U.S. declared war on Japan. Today, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day is dedicated to the tragic event, its victims and survivors. There aren't many who are still alive. While USA Today reports that an exact number isn't known, the newspaper says only 5 crew members of the USS Arizona, a ship completely destroyed in the attack, are still living. Another survivor is retired Navy Lieutenant Jim Downing. He was aboard the USS West Virginia, a ship that sank in shallow water. He's now 104 years old and believed to be the second oldest survivor of Pearl Harbor. Last year, at age 103, he spoke to CNN about his experience.
One of the survivors joins us now from Oahu, retired Navy Lieutenant Jim Downing. He served on the USS West Virginia. He lost 106 of his shipmates that day. Lieutenant Downing, first off, thank you for your service and thank you for being with us today. What scene plays most vividly in your mind when you think about December 7th, 1941?
Well, as I look back, the strongest thing was surprise. There were no satellites in those days. Radar was not yet accepted. So the first shock was surprise. The first Japanese plane I saw was flying toward me low and slow. And the pilot banked, the machine gunner cut loose, and the bullets went over my head and dug a trench behind me. So surprise turned into fear. And then my fear turned into anger. Anger that the world had let Japan build up a big war machine. And also angry at our own political and military leaders for letting us get caught like that. So those were the reactions. They were triggered by the fact that I looked just a few hundred yards from here At my battleship, it had been my home for 10 years. It took 9 torpedoes and began to take on water and to sink, and was on fire above the waterline. So I was really grieved to see my home of 10 years sinking and on fire.
There are not a lot of people left who can share memories like the ones you're sharing with us today. What's it like being back in Hawaii with your fellow veterans on this anniversary?
Well, I think the picture in our minds is really not the greatness of this island. It's frozen in our minds, the destruction that took place that morning. So it's good to meet old friends and talk to them, but somehow that image of the attack is frozen in our minds, and that kind of overrules everything else.
Lieutenant, I cannot thank you enough for your service and your sacrifice. To you and all your fellow members of the Greatest Generation, thank you for what you did, and thank you for spending some time with us today.
Well, I thank you for the privilege of talking with you.
Up next, Ice Cream 101, Introduction to Frozen Desserts. This is a real course at Penn State University, one in which I'd probably get a D for delicious. The annual 2-day class covers everything from the formula to the processing of ice cream, and it's one appetizing great big story.
Americans, we love ice cream. Each person eats about 24 quarts of it per year. And that's for one big reason. It tastes amazing. But someone had to teach Ben & Jerry's how to do it. Turns out, that guy, he works at Penn State. This is Dr. Bob Robert. Hold on. Okay, this is Dr. Bob Roberts. He teaches ice cream courses at Penn State.
I do. I have 2 courses, Ice Cream Short Course and Ice Cream 101.
Side note, these are the type of books ice cream professors read. Okay, back to the story.
Part of the reason that ice cream is so good in the U.S. is that we've been teaching ice cream for 125 years.
And Bob, he's been teaching at Penn State for 25 of those. And he's had some pretty famous students.
Companies like Unilever, Nestle, Breyers, Ben & Jerry's, you name the company, they've sent people here.
That's because the Penn State Creamery is on the forefront of ice cream technology.
Ice cream is a formulated food. There is no naturally occurring ice cream. You have to put the ingredients together and process it to make ice cream.
Bob and his department, they spend their time figuring out how to make ice cream even better.
When we look at studying ice cream, we study ice cream from cow to the cone. So we look at what happens on the farm, what happens with the milk.
Wait, there's a farm?
We have a herd of about 250 or so milking Holsteins, and yes, they are on campus.
So yeah, he knows ice cream. But he says that he's not an ice cream purist.
I'm not sure what an ice cream purist is, but I wouldn't eat frozen yogurt if I had the opportunity to eat ice cream.
Yeah, well, that does make sense considering he is the authority on ice cream. Bob, what's your favorite flavor?
Dulce de leche.
Ooh, yeah.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's a rainbow. In some spots, a double rainbow. Whoa, it's almost a triple rainbow. It recently arced over a city in Taiwan for almost 9 hours. And regardless of whether that makes your heart leap up, Mr. Wordsworth, it may just be a new Guinness World Record if it's approved. The current record holder for longest lasting rainbow only stuck around for 6 hours. The ray of light was just right, the optics were excellent, and the pictures have gotten great exposure all arc around the world. It's great that so many people were able to f-stop what they were doing, take time to focus, and ISO-late the subject to capture it Roy G before it was all gone. I'm Carl Azus with puns that make people shudder.